Neurotransmitters are chemical messengers that transmit a signal from a neuron across the synapse to a target cell, which can be a different neuron, a muscle cell, or a gland cell. Neurotransmitters are chemical substances made by the neuron specifically to transmit a message. Dopamine is responsible for allowing you to feel pleasure, satisfaction, and motivation. When you feel good that you've achieved something, it's because you have a surge of dopamine in the brain. It's released during pleasurable situations, and it stimulates one to seek out the pleasurable activity or occupation. Getting enough sleep, exercising, listening to music, meditating, and spending time in the sun can all boost dopamine levels. Overall, a balanced diet and lifestyle can go a long way in increasing your body's natural production of dopamine and helping your brain to function at its best. Dopamine plays a part in controlling the movements that a person makes, as well as their emotional responses. The right balance of dopamine is vital for both physical and mental well-being. Vital brain functions that affect mood, sleep, memory, learning, concentration, and motor control are all influenced by the levels of dopamine in a person's body. A dopamine deficiency may be related to a certain medical condition, like depression or Parkinson's disease. A dopamine deficiency can be due to a drop in the amount of dopamine made by the body, or by a problem with the receptors in the brain. The symptoms of a dopamine deficiency depend on the underlying cause. For example, a person with Parkinson's disease will experience very different symptoms from someone with low dopamine levels due to drug use. Some signs and symptoms of a dopamine deficiency can be muscle cramps, spasms and tremors, aches and pains, stiffness in the muscles, loss of balance, constipation, difficulty eating and swallowing, weight loss or weight gain, gastroesophageal reflux, frequent pneumonia, trouble sleeping or disturbed sleep, low energy, an inability to focus, moving or speaking more slowly than usual, feeling fatigued, feeling demotivated, feeling inexplicably sad or tearful, mood swings, feeling hopeless, having low self-esteem, feeling guilt-ridden, feeling anxious, suicidal thoughts and thoughts of self-harm, low sex drive, hallucinations, delusions, and a lack of insight or self-awareness. The most common conditions that are linked to a dopamine deficiency include depression, schizophrenia, psychosis, including hallucinations or delusions, and Parkinson's disease. In Parkinson's disease, there's a loss of the nerve cells in a specific part of the brain and a loss of dopamine in the same area. You can check out my other video on Parkinson's and on schizophrenia and on depression for more specific information about natural ways to treat these conditions. It's also thought that drug abuse can affect dopamine levels. Studies have shown that repeated drug use can alter the threshold required for dopamine cell activation and signaling. Damage caused by drug abuse means that these thresholds are higher, and therefore it's more difficult for a person to experience the positive effects of dopamine. Drug abusers have also been shown to have significant decreases in the dopamine D2 receptors and in dopamine release. Diets high in sugar and saturated fat can suppress dopamine, and a lack of protein in a person's diet could mean that they don't have enough L-tyrosine, which is the amino acid that helps to build dopamine in the body. One interesting study found that people who are obese have a certain gene and are more likely to be dopamine deficient also. Having too much dopamine or too much dopamine concentrated in some parts of the brain and not enough in other parts is linked to being more competitive, aggressive, and having poor impulse control. It can lead to conditions that include ADHD, binge eating, addiction, and gambling. About 50% of dopamine is produced in the gastrointestinal tract by enteric neurons and intestinal epithelial cells, and thus it results in higher levels of dopamine in hepatic portal vein. Crosstalk between the gut and the liver has been demonstrated by plenty of studies. Studies have consistently shown that increased intestinal permeability is present in several chronic conditions. Moreover, it's been reported that perturbations in gut microbe diversity and richness influence serotonergic, GABAergic, noradrenergic, and dopaminergic neurotransmission. Among these, dopamine is regarded as the main regulator of cognitive function, such as decision-making, attention, memory, motivation, and reward. Your leaky gut can also cause a leaky brain, where the blood-brain barrier also becomes permeable, and this allows damaging molecules to leak in and to inflame the brain. If you want to help to heal a leaky gut, you can try consuming natural anti-inflammatory and antioxidant foods and eliminate any allergens such as gluten. And you can also try consuming enzymatically preserved colostrum and the amino acid L-glutamine to help to repair any damage to the lining of the gut. Harmful gut bacteria have been shown to decrease dopamine production. Probiotics have the ability to increase it, which can boost mood. Several rat studies have shown increased dopamine production and improved mood and anxiety with probiotic supplements. Additionally, one study in people with irritable bowel syndrome found that those who received probiotic supplements had a reduction in depressive symptoms compared to those who received a placebo. The best probiotic that I know is called VSL3. You can also increase the consumption of prebiotic fiber, such as inulin. Also, you should consume fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, and kefir. The most significant compound found in mucuna pruriens is the amino acid called levodopa, or L-dopa, and this is needed by the brain to produce dopamine. Research has shown that mucuna helps to boost dopamine levels in humans, particularly those with Parkinson's disease, which is the nervous system disorder that affects movement caused by the dopamine deficiency. Studies indicate that mucuna supplements may be just as effective as certain Parkinson's medications at increasing dopamine levels. They may also be effective in boosting dopamine levels in people without Parkinson's disease. For example, one study found that taking 5 grams of mucuna for 3 months increased dopamine levels in infertile men. Another study found that mucuna had antidepressant effects in mice due to the increase in the dopamine production. An increase in dopamine level in the brain following mucuna may not only induce the activation of sexual behavior, but it may also improve plasma testosterone levels. The group in the study that received the mucuna showed a significant improvement in sexual behavior, libido and potency, sperm parameters, and hormonal levels when they were compared to the control group. Mucuna, in combination with other supplements and drugs, is sometimes used to help recover one's testosterone production and natural sex drive after it's been shut off from anabolic steroid or prohormone use. Ginkgo is known as the memory tree. Some studies have found that supplementing with ginkgo biloba in the long term increased dopamine levels in rats, which help to improve cognitive function, memory, and motivation. One test tube study showed that ginkgo extract appeared to increase dopamine secretion by reducing oxidative stress. Curcumin is the active ingredient in turmeric. Curcumin comes in capsules, tea, or powder. It's thought to have antidepressant effects as it increases the release of dopamine. One small controlled study found that taking 1 gram of curcumin had similar effects to taking Prozac on improving mood in people with major depressive disorder. There's also evidence that curcumin increases dopamine levels in mice. Typical doses of curcumin can be from 1 up to 5 grams per day, but curcumin has very low bioavailability. This can be increased by taking the curcumin with biopterin, which is a black pepper extract, or by consuming the curcumin with a fat like coconut oil, butter, ghee, or fish oil. Oregano oil has various antioxidants and antibacterial properties that are likely due to its active ingredient, carvacrol. One study showed that ingesting the carvacrol promoted dopamine production and provided antidepressant effects in mice as a result. Another study in mice found that oregano extracts inhibited the deterioration of dopamine and it induced positive behavioral effects. Oregano, like garlic, is also a powerful antimicrobial herb that's often used to prevent colds and flus. Magnesium and its antidepressant qualities are still not fully understood, but there's evidence that a magnesium deficiency can contribute to the decreased dopamine levels and an increased risk of depression. What's more, one study showed that supplementing with magnesium boosted dopamine levels and produced antidepressant effects in mice. You want to take magnesium in the form of magnesium bisglycinate. In order to determine your dose, slowly start increasing until you notice side effects like stomach discomfort or diarrhea. Then gradually decrease the dose until these side effects disappear. This way, you're able to determine your maximum daily tolerable amount of magnesium. As magnesium is required by over 300 enzymes in the body, supplementing with it can have profound benefits after a couple of months. Because the amino acid L-tyrosine helps the body to produce the mood-influencing chemical dopamine, and because people who are depressed often have low levels of tyrosine, researchers think that taking tyrosine can help to treat depression. Many biohackers prefer to use the form NALT, which is N-acetyl L-tyrosine, for the best absorption and effect. L-theanine can increase neurotransmitters in your brain, including dopamine. Multiple studies have shown that L-theanine increases dopamine production, thus causing an antidepressant effect and enhancing cognitive function. Additionally, studies suggest that both green tea extract and frequent consumption of green tea as a beverage can increase dopamine production, and it's associated with lower rates of depressive symptoms. Vitamin D has many roles in your body, including the regulation of certain neurotransmitters like dopamine. One study showed that decreased dopamine levels were found in vitamin D-deprived mice, and they were improved when the mice were supplemented with vitamin D3. Most humans are deficient in vitamin D. You can get a 25-hydroxy vitamin D blood test and then supplement accordingly with D3 to correct any deficiency. Many studies have discovered that fish oil supplements have antidepressant effects, and they're linked to improving mental health when taken regularly. These benefits may be attributed in part to fish oil's influence on dopamine regulation. For instance, One rat study observed that a fish oil-enriched diet increased dopamine levels in the frontal cortex of the brain by 40%, and it enhanced dopamine binding capabilities. Standard doses would be 3 to 9 grams per day of a molecularly distilled omega-3 EPA DHA fish oil blend. Studies have shown that ginseng can enhance brain skills, including mood, behavior, and memory. Many animal and test tube studies indicate that the benefits could be due to ginseng's ability to increase dopamine levels. It's also been suggested that certain components in ginseng, such as the ginsengenoids, are responsible for the increase of the dopamine in the brain and for the beneficial effects on mental health, including cognitive function and attention. One study on the effects of Korean red ginseng on attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in children observed that lower levels of dopamine were associated with symptoms of ADHD. The children involved in the study received 2 grams of Korean red ginseng daily for 8 weeks. At the end of the study, the results showed that the ginseng improved attention in the children with ADHD. Berberine is an active component present in and extracted from certain plants and herbs. It's been used in traditional Chinese medicine for years, and it's recently gained popularity as a natural supplement. Several animal studies show that berberine increases dopamine levels, and it may help fight depression and anxiety. You can see my other video on life extension, which involves a mix of berberine, DHEA, and growth hormone, and how it's been shown to reverse epigenetic aging. It's also a powerful anti-diabetic agent, which has numerous health benefits. Typical doses are 500 milligrams of berberine hydrochloride taken 3 times per day. Thyroid hormones have been shown to regulate the level of dopamine receptors and the activity of tyrosine hydroxylase, the rate-limiting enzyme of the catecholaminergic pathway. It's concluded that hypothyroidism increases dopamine receptor sensitivity by increasing receptor concentration. You can check out my other video on hypo and hyperthyroid to learn more about these conditions and how to correct them. Neurotransmitters are produced within our neurons via the interaction of various chemicals, including several B vitamins. For instance, vitamin B6, pyridoxine, aids in the formation of neurotransmitters like dopamine, which is involved in our experience of reward, happiness, and pleasure. Make sure that you get a good quality multi-B vitamin. One way to tell this is that the B12 is in the form of methylcobalamin. B12 acts as a cofactor in the synthesis of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. So B12 deficiency affects mood, emotions, and sleeping, and it can lead to psychiatric disorders. Psychiatric manifestations of B12 deficiency can be varied. So you may want to also take a separate B12 methylcobalamin 5,000 microgram sublingual tablet each day. You should realize that a B12 blood test can fail to detect a deficiency, as food is now fortified with folate, and this can give a false reading on the blood test. When tested, the effects of various doses of 2 formulations of CoQ10 in food, it was found that the administration in the diet resulted in significant protection against the loss of dopamine, which was accompanied by a marked increase in plasma concentrations of the CoQ10. Ubiquinol is the best form of CoQ10, and doses range from 200 to 400 milligrams per day. Deficiencies of CoQ10 are also linked to many other health conditions. Glutathione supplements do not directly raise dopamine in the brain. Instead, they improve the efficiency of dopamine in the brain, and they also increase the sensitivity to dopamine and to serotonin. To increase levels of glutathione, the body's master antioxidant, you can take reduced glutathione at up to 1 gram per day. Take N-acetylcysteine at 500 milligrams 3 times per day. Ensure you remove any mercury fillings. Make sure that you get the required daily dose of selenium. One way to get the selenium is to eat 3 Brazil nuts per day. You can also eat asparagus and take the herb milk thistle. Phones, TVs, and video games. Our brains are designed to release dopamine when we do something that meets a survival need, like eating or having sex. Countless studies have shown that phone activity causes the release of dopamine in our brains, making us feel aroused, motivated, and happy. Research shows that children's brains on screen time look a lot like children's brains on cocaine. To help avoid overstimulation and desensitization of the dopamine receptor, it's important to reduce and limit screen time and treat screen time as any other potentially dangerous addictive substance that needs to be managed or carefully and sensibly integrated into a healthy lifestyle with moderation, discipline, and control. One way to help prevent the phone from overstimulating you is to turn it from colour into black and white. One of the best ways to help natural production of dopamine is through regular exercise. When you exercise, you provide a low-dose jolt to the brain's reward centre, the system of the brain that helps you anticipate pleasure, feel motivated, and maintain hope. Over time, regular exercise remodels the reward system, leading to a higher circulating level of dopamine and more available dopamine receptors. Cold exposure increases levels of norepinephrine in the brain by up to 5 times and levels of dopamine up to 2.5 times. People like Wim Hof have demonstrated not only the mood-enhancing benefits of cold exposure, but also the endurance, anti-aging, and immune-boosting properties of this practice. It's also been shown to improve mitochondrial function, which can have profound health benefits for an individual. It's better to adopt a routine of 5 to 10 minutes a day in a cold shower or cold water until your body adjusts to the experience, rather than trying to stay in the cold too long at first and having a negative experience.